If you're thinking about trying a low-carb diet, or you're actually starting your journey on low-carb and you've gotten various objections from other people, or even some internal objections from your own self, I would like to help you walk through those and address them today. My name is Dr. Morola Owolabi. I'm a GP and I'm passionate about nutrition for health. And I've used low carb personally and I've seen it benefit so many other people. And I'd like to help you today by talking about some of these objections and common misconceptions that are holding us back from experiencing the kind of health that we desire. So today we're going to look at 5 common misconceptions about low carb and 5 common misconceptions about nutrition that are holding us back. So let's start by talking about carbs as an essential nutrient. So what does essential nutrient actually mean? An essential nutrient in nutritional science means a nutrient that your body cannot produce on its own. A nutrient that you must get from the outside and is also essential to your health. Well, of the essential nutrients, we have essential amino acids, essential fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals. Those are the only essential nutrients that exist. Carbohydrates is not listed amongst the essential nutrients. And that's because it's not because carbohydrates are not important for life. It's because the amount you need for life can be produced by your own body. So your body has mechanisms by which it can take other forms of nutrients and break them down or convert them into carbohydrates for essential purposes. So in that sense, carbohydrates, we know for a fact that carbohydrates are not an essential nutrient, and not having carbohydrates in your diet is not going to lead to any specific detriment as long as you are getting all the other essential nutrients. Secondly, I'll address the issue of calorie in, calorie out. A lot of the weight loss industry is built around the idea of calories and counting your calories and, getting yourself in a calorie deficit so that you can lose weight. While in a sense that makes sense on paper, the human body is not as simple as that. The processes that happen in your body that determine use of energy and storage of energy are so complex. It's not as simple as calorie in, calorie out. Another important thing to think about is, if you're thinking in a calorie in, calorie out mind frame, you will then assume that every calorie is equal. So if you're counting calories, you're just assuming every calorie is equal. But logically, that doesn't make any sense, because I don't think any of us believe that 100 calories of sugar is equal to 100 calories of salmon. If you are focusing on counting your calories to lose weight, technically they're equal, but actually they're not equal, because there's so much more coming with that 100 calories of salmon or beef than with the 100 calories of sugar. The difference is the nutrients. There are no nutrients in the 100 calories of sugar, but in the 100 calories of beef or salmon or eggs, there's so many other important and essential nutrients that you're getting. When you intentionally restrict your calories, you are going to most likely restrict some nutrients, and also your body will respond as though you are in an emergency situation, like you're in starvation mode. Your body will start to think that something is wrong. You are thinking, I'm trying to lose weight. Your body doesn't know that. Your body thinks there's crisis, there's a problem. So it will produce a lot of the hormones like cortisol that are intended to keep you alive. And what they will start to do is reserve energy usage. So even though your aim is to try and lose excess energy or lose excess weight, fat, your body is actually thinking we need to store everything we are getting. So that's why calorie deficit diets work for some time and then stop working, because the signal is sending to your body is one of let us store to keep this person alive rather than let us lose fat to make this person slim. So the third thing I would like to address is that eating fat will make you fat. This is a very common one, and it also sounds very logical that if you eat fat, then you're just going to be fat. And to be honest, I don't even like the statement of calling someone fat, because you are not fat. You just have more fat on your body. You are who God says you are. But going back to the topic of eating fat makes you fat, that is an oversimplification of what your body does to store fat. How your body determines whether it will store fat or burn fat, because your body has the ability to use fat as fuel and is supposed to. The things that determine that is not the quantity of fat in your meals, but the hormonal responses that your meals and your lifestyle are producing. So if you're eating a diet that is very high in carbohydrates, your body is producing a lot of insulin. And insulin is sending out signals that tell your body to store fat. Amongst many other things that insulin does, one of the things it does is drives fat storage, promotes fat storage, and even locks. It's almost like a lock on your fat burning abilities. So it's locking the fat in. There are other hormonal responses that contribute to that. Even the stress hormones like cortisol, that also contributes to fat storage and contributes to the locking away of fat, because it's trying to keep you alive, like we talked about with the low-calorie diet. The cortisol is there to help you, and it thinks something is wrong, so it will help you store the fat for a rainy day, or for the starvation that is coming, or that it thinks is coming. So essentially, the reason you're storing fat is not because you are eating a high-fat diet. It's actually high-carb diets, chronic dieting culture, chronic stress, amongst many other things that are driving the fat storage. But when you actually eat fat, you're being more satisfied when you eat healthy fats, natural sources of fat. That actually gives you a lot of satiety and helps you not to overeat. It also helps you balance your blood sugars, because you're not eating as much carbohydrates that is being broken down into glucose. And of course, fat is essential. Like we said before, there are essential fatty acids. So you need those essential fatty acids to absorb some of your vitamins, like vitamin K, and of course, to make so many hormones. A lot of your hormones, basically all the hormones your body produces, come from cholesterol. Cholesterol is the precursor. It's like the big molecule, the big substance out of which your body produces other hormones. So fat is actually not bad for you, and it doesn't actually make you fat. The fourth thing I'm going to talk about is eating fat will give you heart disease. This is a very common objection because of some science that came out about 50 years ago telling us that fat causes heart disease. Actually, that was not a causation. In that study, there was no causation found. It was actually a correlation. It means that it just observed populations that ate a lot of fat, and it made that conclusion. But it didn't actually look properly to see that this definitely caused that. It's like saying ice cream causes drowning. Just because ice cream goes up in the summer, the sale of ice cream goes up in the summer, and drownings go up in the summer, you can't conclude that ice cream is the reason why people drown. So just because a population is eating high-fat diet and they have high rate of heart disease doesn't always mean that's the reason. There might be other things. And that was the flaw of that study. But there have been so many other studies down the years that have really looked at that question of if dietary fat is the reason why we get heart disease. And there is none till date that has been able to conclusively tell us that that is the case. So personally and in the scientific community, it is it is a consensus now that dietary fat is not linked with heart disease. What actually causes heart disease are a combination of things like inflammation and damaged cholesterol that is actually linked to excessive amounts of insulin and an excessive consumption of carbohydrates in our diets. And if we look at the population in general, we have honestly gone for the low fat idea. We did our assignments. We were told to eat low fat, and we really did eat low fat. But cardiovascular disease is now the number one killer. It's continuing to rise. Diabetes is rising. High blood pressure, heart disease are rising. Why? If we were doing the right thing by avoiding fat, then we wouldn't see this trend. So certainly, fat is essential. We already said that fatty acids are essential, and avoiding them is actually detrimental. So the fifth objection is that low carb isn't sustainable long term. A lot of people think, oh, how can I survive, without my bread, my pasta, and all that? Or even they think it's going to be a very expensive way of eating, so it can't be sustained over time. Well, certainly, if you approach it in a certain way, it may not be sustainable. But I think that really just depends. Making it sustainable depends on your approach to it and how you plan for it. You don't have to eat organic. You don't have to buy expensive cuts of meat. You don't have to go to that extreme. If you can afford to do all that, then that's fine. But if you can't, just eating clean, good sources of protein and fat with a few non-starchy carbohydrates will do. You don't need to buy prime rib. You don't need to buy organic meat or organic eggs. Just eat real food, and that is all that is needed. And, with the objection of thinking that, oh, I need my bread, I need my rice, I need my pasta. You don't need those. We've already established that carbohydrates are not essential. You may like them and you may enjoy them, and that's fine. It's good to start from that and admitting that you like those foods and you enjoy eating those foods. But there's so many alternatives. There's so many swaps that you can easily make. For example, for your noodles or your pasta, you can swap to konjac based, which is like this flour that is mainly fiber and very low in carb, but it's being used to make noodles and make pasta. And that's a great swap. Even for rice, you can make cauliflower rice. There are various bread-like recipes out there. So there's so many alternatives to those foods that you like and you would miss to try and get you over that. But honestly, as you get into it and you start to do it and do it correctly, you will find that the cravings and the need for all those kinds of food will diminish. Your body gets used to them and you do have cravings for them. They can be addictive, to be honest. But over time, those cravings will diminish as you stick to just eating real food and focusing on the plan that you believe will work for your health. Well, I do hope through this video, we've been able to talk through some of these common objections and help you understand how you can truly overcome them and why they're truly not an obstacle for you to move forward into a low carbohydrate diet. And I hope that we've been able to show how a low carb diet can actually be good in improving health rather than be detrimental to your health. And if you think, that this is something for you, as always, speak to a professional, speak to your healthcare professional before you make any major changes. But if you need help in getting started in your low carb journey, or if you feel like you're struggling to make it work for you, I have a community called the True Wellness Tribe where our passion is to help you understand proper nutrition and help you implement it into your daily life. So you can find the link in the description and you can join us to learn more.